Still trying to get staff in place.
You see what I'm talking about? She just smiled. Okay, I didn't know.
Bear with us, folks. We need a battery for the recorder. So we get another minute or two. And we need a city attorney. Where is he?
But they're playing with the security machine.
Okay.
Diane? No, but I'm going to do that. It does kind of motivate you. If we sing kind of weird. I'll let you go this time.
I do apologize. The silence is a little awkward, but we must have a city attorney in place, and we need the city clerk in place. And they are getting in place now. City clerk's here, and we have a city attorney.
That's good enough.
Emily's here. Good evening again, and welcome to the City Council meeting for November 19th, Stonecrest. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Councilmember Clanton.
Present.
Councilmember Rob Turner.
Here.
Councilmember George Turner.
Here.
Councilmember Diana Adama.
Here.
Councilmember Jasmine Cabo. Mayor Larry, absent. You have a quorum.
It is my understanding that the mayor is en route, but we will go ahead and get things started, and he'll join right in. First item on the agenda is to have invocation.
Yes.
Councilman Turner?
Let us all stand, please. Father, your word says, if we acknowledge you in all of our ways, that you will direct our path. Father, we ask for your direction this evening. We ask for your way and your will according to this meeting and according to the direction of this city. We thank you for the opportunity to serve you by serving others. We bless you for this wonderful season of Thanksgiving, and we thank you for the opportunity to be a blessing to the community. Now, Father, we ask that you lead and guide and manifest your presence in this meeting tonight, that you might be glorified and you might be pleased in what we do. So we give you all the glory and the praise, and we thank you for it. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Address the flag for pledge allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Council? Have you had a chance to review the agenda? Any corrections, additions to the agenda?
Additions, please.
Councilwoman Adama.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. Under public comments, need to add that Mirror also mentioned that
No, hold it. This
Are we
is for
accepting the agenda?
The agenda, not the minutes.
okay,
The agenda.
yeah, okay, I want to go back. On the agenda, I'd like to request that under the consent agenda items, the lot combination of Lakeview at Stonecrest subdivision and Parks of Stonecrest be on the agenda for discussion and be removed out of consent agenda items.
Okay, I believe the process will be, you'll be allowed to do that when we get to that line. You can just request that they be pulled from the
From the consent agenda.
consent agenda.
This would be the appropriate time to do that.
Appropriate time is now?
Yes, sir.
I stand corrected.
Make up your mind, which one?
I stand corrected. I'll yield to the learned attorney. Okay, removing from the agenda, the consent agenda, you're removing which items?
I'd like to remove, under the consent agenda items, I'd like to remove number 3, lot combination of Lakeview at Stonecrest subdivision, 7196, 7340, 7345, 7280, 7226, and 7290 Rockland Road. And then I'd like to remove number 4, lot combination, Pod D, Parks of Stonecrest subdivision.
So they removed from the consent agenda and moved to the regular agenda. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right, anything else?
To the regular agenda.
So we remove them from the consent agenda and add them to the regular agenda.
No, the resolution to authorize the mayor to swear in the county police chief.
That was for this
That's,
council meeting?
that was the
Okay.
council meeting that you agreed to move that to the agenda. And also the resolution for the alcohol appeal board to hear the business license appeal.
Mr. Mayor, Pro Tem.
Unless you'd like to add those to the consent agenda.
Yeah. Yeah.
work.
So, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, can we,
Yes, go ahead.
I would like to offer a motion to move both of those items to our consent agenda.
I'll second it.
All right. Well, hold on, you don't have to do that. You just,
No second.
we'll just add them, then we're going to accept the agenda. Okay, and repeat those items again, so I can scribble them in here.
We are removing item number 3 and 4 from consent, and adding item number 12 and 13, which would be the resolution to authorize the mayor to swear in the county police chief and fire officials, and also number 13, resolution for alcohol appeal board to hear the business license appeals to the consent agenda.
Got it. All right, anything else? With the corrections to the agenda, I have a motion. Do I hear a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve the agenda with the additions and the movement of 2 items.
Second.
Second.
And probably moved in second. Are you ready for the question?
Ready?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The agenda is adopted with the changes. Thank you. Next is the minutes from the last meeting, November 7, 2018. Have you had a chance to review that? Any corrections?
Additions, please.
Addition? All right. Go ahead.
Additions under public comment. Under the first public comment from Mira Cardenas, she spoke on the historic and cultural landmark ordinance and how history is important. She also added that it's good for the city with the potential to bring in much funding. So I just want to add, good for the city with the potential to bring in much funding, federal funding, state funding. The other addition is under, let's see, Under the agenda items, the discussion regarding the Splosh Committee. Just want to add that the nominees for District 5 were nominated by the mayor.
Where's that again? On the item number 9. Okay. Anyone else?
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem,
Yes, sir.
in regards to the two items that was Councilwoman Adoma suggested that we add to the agenda, how do we validate that?
It is recorded if you want to approve it pending the validation of the recording.
Mr. Clerk?
Okay, the nominees would be something that she wants to put in there, stating that he made those nominations because I guess they were not her nominations. So that was not just said in the minutes, but she wants that in the minutes. I don't know whether the first one was correct, but I can listen to that and see if she said.
Certainly. And in regards to the second one, Mr. Attorney, how do we go about adding information that was not in the original minutes to the minutes?
If it wasn't part of the minutes, if it wasn't discussed specifically in the meeting, then it shouldn't be part of the minutes.
I'm sorry to say it would be recorded or it would not be recorded. If it's not recorded, then it didn't happen
It didn't happen
at the meeting.
at the meeting. It didn't happen. I mean, it's a fact, I guess, but as far as if it was not provided in the meeting minutes or discussed in the meeting, then it should not be in the minutes. I don't know if it was discussed or not. I just,
Then again, that goes to the recording. If it was discussed at the meeting, then it can be included, is my understanding. But if it was not discussed at the meeting, it'll have to be dealt with someplace else.
Yeah, the splash was discussed. It was discussed whether that Councilmember Adama had sent her appointees in, and the mayor gave me a letter that she sent her appointees in and did not have any addresses, and therefore he appointed who was on that committee. So Councilmember Adoma just wants it stated that these appointees came from the mayor and not from her for District 5. That's the gist of it. But it was not in the minutes.
Is that in the record, though?
Right.
Do we know?
I'm sorry, was it in the record or not?
Look and see.
It's in the record.
Councilman Clanton
See if
has
she
the floor.
said- If she said that to him.
I did.
Okay, so.
We talked in detail. Since it was my conversation, I'd like to elaborate. We spoke in detail about how those nominees were nominated. You can also add for the record that I read the email with the 3 nominees that was sent to the mayor, and his response was, he didn't receive the email address for those, unquote.
So that's a matter of what is recorded.
Verbatim.
No, that's a matter of what I said.
No, what you said was recorded, is all I'm saying.
Right, it's recorded, it should be on the recorder. It was a detailed conversation.
Then I would suggest that if I put that in there, I do it verbatim, because if not, the minutes are going to look crazy. It's just going to have some conversation and nothing coming back at it. I did put the conversation in there, what was discussed, but not specific wording, because Councilman Adama said one thing the mayor said he did not say that, and I quoted to her what was in the minutes.
Okay. So you're going to put verbatim,
I'll bring them
In
back
there.
to you verbatim.
okay, thank you. Anything else on that?
No, just to say that if we're going to do verbatim, then, I mean, it's only fair that you do verbatim from both sides, because otherwise the minutes should reflect something that's not totally correct. So, I think at another meeting or at some other time, we do need to discuss what gets put in the minutes because, after the fight, you go back and say, well, look, I want to add this to the minute and I want to add that to the minute. We probably need to just settle on by policy or whatever we need to do to figure this out so that in future council sessions, we don't have this issue.
I'd like to address that, please.
Go ahead.
I actually read the email. I gave the date of the email. I gave the names of the nominees, and the mayor did in fact respond.
See if it's in. Yes.
Right now, we're trying to get the minutes approved, and if we don't have what we need to get the minutes approved, I think that,
If you can't approve the minutes if you.
I make a motion to defer the minutes until the clerk have had the opportunity to review the audio recording.
Okay, and the mayor did respond. He said, Councilwoman, you submitted 3 names for the committees with no phone contact number. I really need from you to select one of these 3 you really want. Please send today with the contact name and email. And he gave this to me and said that he probably wouldn't be here, but he wanted this to be read.
okay. There was a motion on the floor and waiting on a second.
Second,
What was the motion?
Repeat the motion.
to defer the approval
The
of.
motion is to defer the minutes because there is more information that is not on what the clerk just read.
And I think your point about what a discussion as far as what should be in the minutes, I think would be good for a work session.
All right, yeah, good. And there's a motion on the floor to,
Your lawyer will always tell you the lesser the better.
You're right.
the motion on the floor is to defer, accept approval of the minutes until the next meeting, or until we get what in there?
Until when?
It wasn't my motion, I just seconded it. I think Diane,
Till the next meeting.
The next meeting?
Until the next meeting. You ready for the question? All in favor, say aye.
aye.
Opposes, nay.
You nay?
I'm an aye.
You and I? Thank you.
All ayes.
Okay, thank you very much. Next thing is public hearing. First item on the agenda is an ordinance for rezoning application RA-18-006, 6206 Covington Highway, Community Development.
Yes, good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. In this item for 62606 Covington Highway, the applicant is requesting to rezone the property from MU4, which is the mixed-use district, to RSM Small Lot Residential to construct 94 townhomes. This application was heard at the November 9th, 2018 Planning Commission meeting. The applicant originally requested that this property be zoned MR1. Hold on one second, I just want to shift this over for you. It's not shifting. All right, in front of you, you'll see the zoning map that basically shows you the parcel in blue. The surrounding zoning is RSM and R100, as well as some commercial zoning adjacent to it. Originally, as I stated, the applicant, recommended that the property be rezoned MR1. However, staff recommended the property be zoned RSM to be to match the adjacent property zoning that's already there. The applicant did agree to change their zoning request to RSM, or has agreed to the recommended RSM zoning classification that staff has recommended. The Planning Commission recommended approval of the application with the removal of conditions 3 and 7. Both conditions were recommended by the city engineer due to concerns over traffic at this particular location. This slide here, once again, shows the proposed site, shown in blue with a star on it. The neighboring drawing shows the proposed subdivision that's being proposed by the applicant. We do have the applicant here to present to you as well. However, staff will be here if you have any additional questions. However, I will note once again that the Planning Commission did recommend approval of this rezoning application with the removal of the two conditions from the city engineer regarding them doing a couple of studies to ensure that they do not need any additional traffic calming devices or traffic control devices at this location due to the concern over traffic. Thank you.
Okay, council, are you ready to open for public hearing?
Before.
You can do both.
We can ask now.
I'm sorry?
Let's wait till after.
Practice is to wait until after we hear the presentation from the applicant.
Okay?
Okay, now we need to have a motion to open up for public hearing.
I make a motion to open up the public hearing.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we open public hearing for application RA-18-006,
It's actually RZ.
RZ. It's been properly moved and seconded. Are you ready for the question?
Ready?
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposers say nay. All right. Motion carries. We are open for public hearing on this item. Applicant will come forward.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and members of the City Council. I'm Larry Dingle. I'm here on behalf of the applicant, Bill Prost. I won't reiterate what has already been described as the matter before you with regard to the requested rezoning. It is my place to recommend that you approve this rezoning application as it's been approved and recommended by the Planning Commission. There's simply one provision that I'd like to ask that you consider in that process, and that relates to the RSM zoning, and we'd like for it, the record to show that we would like the amendment to be made so that it says the following: for the RSM zoning, single-family classification, the single-family attached setbacks are for external property setbacks. The setbacks are not per individual attached lots. That's the simple request that we're asking for. What I will do at this moment is ask Ken Woods, who's also working on this file, to come up and give you a more thorough explanation of what this application is about.
Kenneth Wood, 350 Research Court, Peachtree Corners, Georgia. So the track itself, can you guys see the monitor? Everything we can see on the TV as well? Yeah, awesome. The 13-acre track. So it currently today is MU4. There was a lot of different talk with staff and as well as the Planning Commission about what it is today. So today it's zoned for 123 senior apartments, rental apartments, as well as 20,000 square feet of office, which is MU4. When you look at the future land use map, one of the things that is really striking that is it's a neighborhood center is the way the future land use map works. And so when we looked at this and we're looking at it as for-sale townhomes, so down zoning it from the MU4 to for-sale townhomes for home ownership, the townhome sitting up against the commercial, it's a C1 commercial center just to the west of us, makes a great transition. And that's what we're looking at. I think that was why it was zoned MU4 previously. And so when we originally submitted, you can see it in the middle, we submitted at 115, and then we since brought it down to 105, and now we're down to 94, which is the current layout. And so it's just under 7 units per acre at 6.94 units per acre on the total. And so when you're seeing that staff recommendation, making sure I explain, how everything occurred, we got through Planning Commission to you guys, is the MR1 zoning has a base density of 8 units per acre. So as we started dropping our density, we dropped down to which would be more appropriate for the RSM. And then the RSM, in order to get from 4 to 6, we have some density bonuses that we look to achieve. Like I said, all of the townhomes, when you're looking at it, and let me make sure I got this, are attached, and they are all for sale. And so we've had a lot of different site plans that we looked at through some of the different mix. This was the original site plan that had a little bit less, and then we kind of crunched it in And so the way you look at it today is we have a 50-foot buffer, undisturbed buffer on the entire top against the single family. If you're looking on the west side in the back, there's an existing stream, and so we're about 200 feet away from the back single-family properties. And then from some of the discussions in the public participation meeting, there was talk about, what else could come onto the buffer line. So the other things we are proposing that do not show up in the conditions, but we show it on our plan, we're willing to offer it up, is we have the 50-foot undisturbed buffer and then an additional 10-foot evergreen screening, and then also a fence, a solid fence. And so we said that we would be open to negotiate what that was with the neighbors, about whether it needed to be on the property line with the neighbors or if it made more sense to be at the edge of the undisturbed buffer where the evergreen would be. I think both of them probably gives good visual screening, but we're open to either location. I think our preference, instead of disturbing along their property line, would be to put it on the edge of the undisturbed buffer. But I just wanted to make sure I talked about that and can understand it. As you're looking at the plan, we're going through, we've got basically a clubhouse when you drive in. It's a divided median. We lined our access point to across the street. There's a townhome community that has not yet been finished across the street that we are aligned with. And when you come in, we have kind of our main amenity area. That would be like a cabana, so it's a gathering space, have passive amenities there like a fire pit and some different things that you can have for gathering in that location. And then as you drive all the way through, there's different courtyards throughout the development. As part of also what we heard from the community, we were talking about walking trails and interconnectivity. So we show the sidewalks on every side of the road, finishing the whole sidewalk trail along the entire frontage. And so that would actually connect to the west, which is the shopping center down on the bottom. And so people would be able to walk and actually get to the restaurants that are there. And that was an important part of what we looked at as being interconnected with that commercial. If you're looking at the plan, we also, on our latest plan, we're also showing walking trails that would just be a mulch walking trail so that we can get into the buffers that would extend around down into the stream buffer and then up and around the detention pond. So it would give some additional length to the walking trail and provide more trails than just the sidewalks along the road. So you have the whole frontage, the sidewalks throughout the community, and then the entire trail that can loop around the pond through the buffer itself. The townhomes itself are 24 feet wide. They're a 2-story product, and they live more like a home, being 2 stories instead of the 3, so they're not the really tall townhomes that you see a lot of the times. And running back, I wanted to make sure one other thing as we're talking about the undisturbed buffer that we have the ability to, and this is something I do need your help on, is anytime you have an undisturbed buffer, which we have here, we're proposing a 50-foot undisturbed buffer along the north. That buffer is sparse in a couple of places, and I tried to show where it's sparse in a couple of places. If it's considered undisturbed, I just want to make sure that if it's sparse, we can get in there and replant new to fill the buffer. A lot of times when it's undisturbed, if it's sparse, it just remains sparse and there's nothing you can do. So we want to make sure as we're pledging the buffer to the citizens that we can actually get into the places where there is no tree cover and actually plant. And I've got actually a picture of the landscape plan so you can look at some of the different locations. And then the homes, as I said, they're a mixture of different type of materials along the front, and then they would be 2-story in nature. So like I said, they're more compatible with the homes around them, as well as the transition for density from the single-family detached to the shopping center that's going on. And we were trying to just show some different images. We don't know right now whether or not we would have the cabana with a pool or cabana with some other type of amenities, but we definitely have, whether it's passive or active amenities would be there in the central location so that it's easy for everybody to get there, as well as we have over 50% guest parking. That's real big on townhome developments. A lot of people don't provide guest parking, and we wanted to make sure that we had that there. And with that, I'll like to leave any remaining time for rebuttal, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else speaking in favor of this development? Anyone else speaking in favor of this development? Madam Clerk, how much time? 2:10. At this time, we'll entertain anyone who is speaking in opposition to this development. Is there anyone speaking in opposition to this development? Seeing none, the applicant, you finished?
Only to the extent you have questions. If you have questions.
Just hold on. Okay, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
I make a motion
Pro
to
Tem.
close the public hearing.
Second.
And properly moved and second that we close the public hearing. At this time, we'll entertain questions for council and the applicants. Oh, I'm sorry. All in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Now, we'll entertain questions from of staff and the applicant.
The only question I have is, how much would these homes be worth or be cost to people?
So the information that I got from Bill, the owner of the property, and they've owned it for a long time, is the builder is looking at starting in the kind of low to mid twos, and so you're 220, 230, 240, and you know how that is. It starts and then it
Right.
kind of moves up.
Okay, that's it?
That's it.
Anyone else?
I had a question for Ms. Doty.
Yes, ma'am.
The planning commission decided against, I'm sorry, I'm trying to scroll back to it.
I can the traffic thing.
Uh-huh.
So the reason that request was made, it wasn't that we did a traffic study and submitted it, and Ken's request, what our concern was it was very open. It basically said that if you do a traffic warrant analysis and you're at the intersection and it says you need a light, even though we know that there's no way that 94 and the number across the street would trigger a light being that close to the other one. What we were worried about was that if it was, some big requirement came out of that, that the only people you'd be able to put that on would be just ours, when it would be benefiting so many others, and we couldn't figure out a way to, tie anyone else to it. So that's why we just said after we could get it removed.
If I can say that a slightly different way, because the traffic signalization serves the interest of people other than those folks who are going to be entering and exiting the development, on the Georgia statute is called it is referred to as a system improvement. When you have a system improvement, you charge everybody for its pro rata or their pro rata responsibilities of that system improvement. And that's what the traffic light would be. It would actually be a system improvement. And so there's no way that we can think of, under these circumstances, to condition this zoning so that it would be in compliance with that requirement.
So our staff's response to that? Or attorney, whoever.
I will say that there are zoning cases that uphold a traffic light as a condition of zoning. I'll let Nicole speak as to the policy, but you can require public infrastructure improvements if it is related to the impact of the rezoning, lessen the impact of the rezoning. So there have been Georgia cases which have upheld.
Right, which is the reason why the city engineer put in the request. Once again, the language itself specifically requests that they do a traffic signal warrant study, and that's really just to say, you're doing a study to say, well, do you need it or do you not need it? The applicant is concerned that if it says that they need it, then they would have to do it. And as they were discussing previously, they were concerned about the sharing of the costs. However, typically when you do these types of developments, depending on where they are and if they're infill or new, there are situations where you can request them to make the improvements to the roadways or to traffic lights, signals, or otherwise in order to proceed with the project. And that's basically based on the fact that even though they might come in, other people might come in, they might have to do improvements also that would be beneficial to the greater good of all the projects that are there as well. So the city engineer did put in that request, however, the planning commission did not proceed with that particular requirement. So once again, it's coming before you without that requirement, and also with regards to the entrance onto Covington Highway. The city engineer requested that the development be limited to one entrance on Covington Highway. subject to the approval of the City of Stonecrest engineer and the Georgia Department of Transportation. So we would be working with GDOT, whether or not one entrance onto Covington Highway was appropriate or not. Once again, the city engineer has included that as a requirement, which is something that he would do working with the Georgia Department of Transportation regarding the project.
And if I could just clarify, if this is a state road, for example, and GDOT is control of the road, we can't tell GDOT what to do.
Right.
And so what she's saying is subject to GDOT's approval. If GDOT says it's not warranted or it's not needed for any traffic or curb cuts or decel, XL lane, we cannot mandate something. Only GDOT has that authority.
So would doing this study before we contacted GDOT be premature? Is that what?
It's frequently done this way. In the way that it's written is subject to GDOT approval. So in other words, if GDOT says no, then the applicant doesn't have to do it because they can't.
Okay.
So the applicant wouldn't be putting the cost out for no reason. I guess it's my concern is that if we require them to do the study and GDOT says, no, you don't need it, then they've spent.
I would suggest that we would work with GDOT first to see whether GDOT thinks the study is
Okay. So, okay, all right. All right.
Okay, that's it?
Just
Anyone else? I'm sorry.
Just to be clear, the one reason that we were saying that this is a system improvement is that we aren't talking about local roads, we're actually talking about a state highway. Covington Highway is a state route, and I don't think you're going to find much in the way of authority, legal authority, where there has been a decision made by a local unit of government to impose and have that imposition of a system improvement, such as a traffic installation of a traffic light on a state route, as being proportionate with and consistent with the impact fee statute.
Thank you. Anyone else? Just one. You mentioned the undisturbed buffer, that you needed some more help with that. Please elaborate some more.
So we show, so let me go over to the slide. So we call out a 50-foot undisturbed buffer. And when we met with the neighbors, that was important. And so there's some areas, see where I have everything that's dark, like the aerial image is buffer and the existing trees. There's a couple of places where I show it in white. That's where replanting would occur. All I'm asking is if maybe there's a condition added that says, where the buffer is sparse, replanting is allowed. And something that just allows us to replant, because in a lot of jurisdictions, I haven't come across in Stonecrest yet, but in a lot of jurisdictions, if it says an undisturbed buffer, sometimes we literally can't even get in there to replant a tree.
Okay. And staff, you are okay with that?
Yes, I can go back and check to confirm. It is true, there is some instances when you have an undisturbed buffer, they don't allow you to do anything in it. I don't know if ours specifically says that. I know within our transitional buffer, we're not allowed to do anything, but I will back check that and see whether that would be appropriate. And I'll also look at the 50-foot buffer, because some of the information that the applicant's bringing to you, we didn't actually get prior to this, or at least I haven't seen it. So it's hard for me to say with it 100% being okay, but I feel that we'll be able to look into it and get it sorted out, and it should be fine.
Thank you.
If I would suggest maybe the term landscaped buffer instead of undisturbed buffer would probably cover those concerns.
Okay. Any other questions?
Another question.
Yes, ma'am.
So if we were to move with the recommendation that the Planning Commission gave us, how do we ensure that the GDOT process is followed through? Or do we need to make the recommendation with that, some kind of special language?
You could recommend what Emily has suggested, which was to have the staff work with GDOT to see whether or not these requirements are needed, necessary, unnecessary, based on them. The requirement for the warrant study is also in conjunction with approval from the Georgia Department of Transportation. So nothing here that was recommended by him is something that would not go to Georgia State Department of Transportation to get their approval or their input as it relates to it. So you could just put some language in there for them to make sure that discussions are had with GDOT regarding any improvements that may be needed for the road. And I think that may be appropriate. I don't know, Emily, if you feel differently. I mean, it's kind of, the decision is yours, of course.
So condition 3 says the development shall be limited to one entrance on Covington Highway. Said entrance shall align with Santander Drive and have adequate spacing and sight distance subject to the approval of the city engineer and GDOT. So that's
So it's
whether or
already in
not
there.
they will have another access point on Covington Highway or not, which GDOT would approve
Sorry.
either way.
Right, they have to.
Okay.
And then 7 is the warrant study for the traffic signal.
So the planning commission left 3 and 7 in there, right?
They removed them because the applicant requested that they be removed.
Oh, I thought they removed 13 and 14. Okay.
No, they removed 3 and 7.
Oh, okay. Oh, it's been
So those
renumbered.
are not part of what the planning.
And 3 and 7 both are subject to the approval of the city engineer. and GDOT.
Okay.
Okay.
Cool.
That makes
That's good.
sense.
Just for point of clarification, I don't want to seem too, but it says here that, and this is the relevant, owner developer shall install a signal light at no cost to the city of Stonecrest. That is problematic. And I don't want us to not to overlook that. That's been the grist of what we've been talking about, is that is an impermissible imposition of a system improvement on a single property owner on a state route. Because bear in mind that those people who travel around Covington Highway are going to be benefited by that traffic light. It is not just this property owner that should be burdened with that responsibility, and that's really what we're.
And that's taken out.
Taken out.
Well, that's,
Okay.
you would decide tonight whether you wish to take 7
Oh,
out.
okay.
Planning Commission recommended that it be taken out. You have the ability to impose it or whatever other condition you felt would be necessary to reduce the impact of this rezoning on the public welfare.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, council?
And one thing, if I hate to interrupt you, I apologize. The way that it has been phrased is to go to MR2, Nicole?
It was MR1 they were originally asking for. However, we are recommending RSM.
So if that is the wish of council, I just would ask that you make it clear in your motion that you approve the rezoning to RSM rather than RMR.
MR1.
What with the zoning? Wait, to rezone it to,
RSM.
okay.
That you clarify which district you're picking, in
Okay.
addition to what conditions you are picking.
Okay.
Okay. Council, what is your pleasure?
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I make a motion that the ordinance for rezoning application RZ-18-006-6206 Covington Highway be rezoned to a RSM.
I second it.
It's been probably moved in second for the rezoning. You ready for the question?
Is that right?
If you wish to impose any conditions, I would make that part of the motion.
Or with the recommended conditions as per the plan, you have to.
With the recommended conditions from the Planning Commission.
second it
Removal
again.
or with or
Their
without?
recommendations.
Which is all but 3 and 7.
Right.
Clear?
Are we good?
Did you say except 3 and 7?
Except 3 and 7.
Well, that's the recommendation, so.
Okay.
Yes.
It's
It's already written.
Right.
Okay. It has been probably moved in second. Are you ready for the question?
Ready?
Yes.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposers, nay. Motion carries. Thank you. The next item is ordinance TMOD 18-0006. Amend section 3.5.15, low-rise mixed-use zone, tier 3.
All right, good evening. Once again, this is a text amendment for the Stonecrest Overlay District. Now, based on the work session discussion, staff does not have any problem with the considerations for doing the text amendments to the Stonecrest Overlay as a whole. It was something that staff originally recommended, waiting for the completion of the comprehensive plan, which you will be hearing in December. So we don't have a problem with that concept. As it relates to the Oversight Committee, there was recommendations provided to staff by the Oversight Committee originally, and all those recommendations are recommendations that are being used and considered in doing the modifications to the Stonecrest Overlay District currently. So I just wanted to put that out in the forefront so you were aware. But at this time, staff has brought forward a recommendation to amend Tier 3 of the Stonecrest Overlay District. It is a low-rise mixed-use tier zone. And what we were doing was trying to include single-family homes as a permitted use within this mixed-use tier. Currently, the tier allows a substantial amount of commercial uses to be mixed together as well as residential, but it's primarily what's considered urban residential, which tends to be townhomes. The request was that could it be possible to have single-family homes incorporated as part of residential uses that could be used in the tier? So staff did propose language that would allow that. As you can see on the zoning map before you, Tier 3 is the orange tier, the lighter orange tier. So this map kind of gives you an idea of what area specifically we're talking about, where this would take effect. And just for purposes of definition, it's just to be clear, mixed-use development is a type of urban development that blends residential, commercial, cultural, institutional, entertainment uses where those functions are physically and functionally integrated that provides pedestrian connections. So one of the things that we wanted to do is we wanted to fulfill the standard mixed-use type of development, so we proposed some language that basically does that. Some of the amendments that we recommended was specifically to fix the all uses authorized, instead of being RMR 25, or 275, that's an old zoning designation, so we updated it to high density residential district, which is what we're using currently. We've also attached language in item number 6, which gives you permission to have single family homes or single-family communities as part of mixed-use development. So as long as you're doing some type of mixed-use development, you can have a single-family community included with that. We've provided some additional details as it relates to some of the development standards for this particular use. This item was heard by the Planning Commission, and they did recommend approval of the text amendment. So staff is available if you have any further questions regarding this item. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, at this time, we'll entertain a motion to open the floor for public hearing.
Mr. Mayor,
Mayor
I'll make a motion that we open up public hearing.
I second it.
It's been properly moved and second to open the floor for public hearing on this item. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. Floor is now open for public hearing on this item. Those speaking in favor of this item, please come forth.
Good evening, council members. Michelle Battle with Battle Law, 1 West Court Square, Decatur, Georgia. I am here representing not only Rockhaven Homes, but others who are developing within the area. I'd like to give a little context. I may have a slight disagreement with staff's presentation of this issue. First and foremost, we've got projects that are pending for which land disturbance permits have already been issued in this particular tier. And what's interesting is that historically, there has been no residential development for the most part within Tier 3. There hasn't been much development from that perspective, I think mainly because of the economic downturn. And as we are now seeing that resurgence, we are now having projects that are coming into this area that are single family, both detached and attached product that is trying to come into Tier 3. And what was clear in the current draft, or not the current status of Tier 3, is that single-family detached and attached product is permitted. I'm not sure where staff is getting that it was not, but it is. If you look at the statute itself, it indicates that all uses that are allowed in the RM75 district are permitted within Tier 3. Well, under the current code, RM75 translates into MR2. And under the MR2 district regulations, both detached and attached product are permitted uses. Staff, however, has now suggested that because of other comments received, that they should change from MR2 to H1, which in fact disallows that detached product. So you can no longer have a single-family detached home. Well, I think that that is misplaced, but yet what they did was they said, well, look, we took it out in HR by putting in HR1, but we added it back in provision A6 by stating that you can have a single-family attached or detached product as long as it's part of a mixed-use development. We believe that mixed use means, in that instance, that you can have a detached product and an attached product, and you meet that mixed use definition. Again, there are projects that are pending in this area, and I think when you look particularly as you're moving along Rockland Road going up towards Turner Hill as it turns into Turner Hill, I don't think there should be any question that single-family detached homes is an appropriate use, both detached and attached, within those geographic areas. You look at anything, quite honestly, south of Hayden Quarry Road, and I think you've already got product that has been approved in that area. You've got folks who are already putting forth plats with regards to both detached and attached product. So what we were looking to do and what we had requested was that there be some modifications to Tier 3 because of pending projects where there is no guidance as to the district dimensional requirements within Tier 3 as it is currently written. So if you look at Tier 3 right now today, it says that single-family homes are permitted, single-family attached is permitted, but there's no regulations that says what the size of the lot has to be, what the setback on the lot has to be with regards to that specific type of use. Whereas if you look in some of the other tiers 4 and tiers 5, you'll see that there's more specificity there. So when clients have been coming and trying to actually lay out their projects and they say, well, MR2 says that we can have a single family house, but it doesn't say how many, doesn't say, the regulations don't seem to jive with that type of product in terms of what the dimensional requirements were. So that is why we requested and spoke with staff about trying to provide some clarity there, as again, you have projects where land disturbance permits have been issued. People have been purchasing property within that tier in anticipation of being able to develop in accordance with Tier 3. So we are very much in support of the Tier 3 modification in the text amendment. We believe that it will allow for the continued development within that tier. We recognize that the staff will be looking overall at the Stonecrest Overlay District, making further modifications as suggested by the City Council and through the comp plan review. But we believe that the changes that have been made in this iteration of the text amendment are consistent with the vision that has always been had for that tier. And so in order to avoid slowing down projects that have already been permitted, we certainly would request that you all move forward with approving this text amendment for Tier 3. And then to the extent that any further modifications are needed to the overall overlay district, or there's some different direction that's taken, that be addressed. We don't know if that's going to take a month, 2 months, 3 months, 5 months. Meanwhile, you've got projects that are pending that are waiting for this text amendment to go through. So we appreciate it if you all would approve this tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else speaking in favor of this development? This change?
Good evening. Bernard Knight. I'm speaking tonight on behalf of the Stonecrest Business Alliance Incorporated, which is a nonprofit devoted to the improvement of the economy in Stonecrest. And I'm the chairman and the general counsel. I want to thank Ms. Battle and her clients. They came and they talked with the Business Alliance Board at length. They explained this to us, and we did vote to support this text amendment. Now, in general, what we would like is what would be done through the proposed overlay steering committee in conjunction, of course, with staff and subject to approval by the city council, which would resume the work which was started by the overlay task force but was interrupted 2 years ago by the creation of the city. This particular amendment is a good amendment. It should be done. Now, there is one minor problem with it, which is that it applies to Tier 3, both north and south of I-20. This Tier 3 is mostly south of I-20. That's where this amendment would be appropriate. Frankly, I don't think there should be any Tier 3 north of I-20. And that's one of the things I believe that's going to be addressed with the overhaul of the Stonecrest overlay. But there is no reason to delay this particular revision. Michelle is right that we don't want to delay these projects. What her proposal consists of makes complete sense. We want to have detached housing available in Tier 3. So I would join Michelle in asking you to approve this particular amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. How much time? Is there anyone else speaking in favor of this item? Anyone else speaking in favor of this item? Seeing none? Is there anyone speaking in opposition to this item? Come now.
You know, I'm Faye Cofield. I've lived in the Chaparral subdivision area for over 23 years. And most of this land back there is what we would call R100. We have the nature trail. We have all of that south of I-20. My godsister just bought a house off of Rockland right as it turns. Part of that subdivision is in Stonecrest, but it has been taken over by Rockdale County. Those homes over there start at $280,000. They are on large lots, and they are solid brick, and they are selling. We need to have a master plan for Stonecrest. I have looked at the, LCI from 2013. And that is a wonderful, agreeable use for land because, as they say, most of this land going towards the nature preserve is on granite. So now this was explained to me, if you take 20 acres and you approve for them to have 100 houses on 20 acres, but they can only build on 5 of those acres, they still can try to squeeze as many houses on that 5 acres as long as they stay under 100. We need to make sure that Stonecrest becomes the city that we were promised. Now, I came down Memorial Drive. I used to work. I know Memorial Drive from Hill Street all the way to Candler Road, but like the back of my hand, because I used to work it. And I know all the way back to the city limits of Atlanta from Memorial Drive. Now, when you come down Memorial Drive right now, you see quality development. You see quality housing. Right now, they're building one of the largest floor and decor stores on Memorial Drive that is bigger than anything they have in Buckhead or anywhere else. We need to stop all of this spot zoning, and we're going to approve this and we're going to approve that. They haven't showed you one idea of what they want to build. They're just saying, well, we've got a vision, we've got an idea. I have a vision of going home and finding a deer's elbow, but we know how that's going to work out. Okay, so ideas are one thing, but planning is another. And to have dreams and visions is one thing, but you have to show us what you are planning to build. And in fact, every townhouse that has come here before you has the same identical look. It doesn't matter where it's going, it looks the exact same. We have worked hard back there in this area to maintain it. The biggest thing you have going back there is the nature trail. And if you haven't seen that nature trail and who it draws, then I suggest you go out there, because the parking lots for the nature trail are filled with people from out of the area. What we should be trying to do is, somebody sent me a picture of a $500,000 house in the Glenwood area. It was a wood house. It was 1,300 square feet. It was very small. Just imagine what a $500,000 house looks like in Stonecrest. We need to be trying to attract people to come here with quality developments, and not all of this just building houses without building anything. And for those of you who think you can't build anything, then go to Memorial, where the old Atlanta Dairy is. It used to be, I'm sorry, and see what they're putting there. We have two major stores, two major grocery stores in Stonecrest. One is the Kroger, and the other is the Publix. And then we have Food for Less, and I can't think of another one. And Walmart does not count as a grocery store. So we don't have any major stores, we don't have anything. But then cross the line into Rockdale County. We got low 100 developments being built here on Mall Parkway. But when you go across, not 100 feet, they're building $250,000 townhouses that are selling. You go down 138, which was once distressed, by the way. They just got a Chipotle. How come and this is a how come, not a why, because whys are very elaborate things. How comes are very simple. How come we aren't seeing that type of development coming here? I tell you to oppose this, to don't do any more major rezoning, reclassification until you get a master plan in place. And when you get that master plan in place, then we're good. Otherwise, let them stick to the, 2013 LIC? And if you've looked at that, that's a great plan for the area. So anyway, I'm not going to take up all the time, but I'm going to tell you, don't let people start bringing all this foolishness and all these promises here without a master plan.
Thank you. Anyone else speaking in opposition? Anyone else speaking in opposition to this item? Seeing none, council would take a motion to close public hearing.
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Been properly moved and second to close the public hearing. You ready for the question? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposers say nay. Public hearing is closed.
Okay, just for further clarification, one of the things I did want to note, as I did a very brief presentation, is that Ms. Battle and Mr. Knight are correct. Staff is currently working on the comprehensive plan, and in conjunction with some of the data that we received from the comprehensive plan and the understanding that the Stonecrest overlay needs to be rewritten, we were looking at all the tiers and trying to figure out the appropriate designations and things to put within the different tiers. One of the things staff did not want to do is we didn't want to bring you a tier without as many appropriate modifications and changes that could be made to it, because it wouldn't make sense to us to go through the exercise and not bring you something that's close to what could be the final product once we finish going through all the tiers and getting an overview of the entire Stonecrest Overlay District. So this is one of many text amendments. We would like to bring it to you as much as possible in a one document. However, we do understand that there are projects pending, such as was mentioned to you previously. So there are some instances where we have to bring certain pieces forward to keep development moving forward. Of course, once again, that is completely up to the discretion of you all, mayor and council, to decide if that's how you'd like to continue the process as it's already started, or to move forward with some of the recommendations of some of the things that were discussed at your work session. Other than that, though, this text amendment has been recommended for approval by the Planning Commission and has been supported by the greater public. So we would request that you approve this text amendment. Thank you.
Council? Any questions?
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, this is just the first read of this ordinance, so there will not be a vote tonight.
Can we ask questions?
Okay, but we'll
Can
still
we ask
continue with the
questions?
questions. Yes.
Text amendments still required 2 reads.
Thank you.
Really?
Okay, but still, we go with the questions. Councilwoman Adama?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. Ms. Dozier, just a quick question. Where are we with the development and the finalization of the comprehensive plan? Can you provide a brief update for the council, please?
As it stands right now, the intention is to bring the draft comprehensive plan to the Planning Commission and Mayor and Council in December. We are currently working diligently with the consultant in order for that to occur. So that's the timeline we are envisioning at this time. So in December, hopefully you'll have something before you. The consultant is anticipating doing a presentation back to the stakeholders committee. In conjunction with that, they will be hosting a public meeting to also introduce the document, including the brand-new future land use amendment map to the public as well.
Yeah, because we want to encourage development in the city of Stonecrest. Actually, we want lots of development in the city of Stonecrest. However, I guess some of my concerns is we haven't finalized that comprehensive plan yet, so we don't know exactly where we're going with the comprehensive plan. So in the interim, we're looking at about, February or March of 2019 before the completion. So whatever is approved between now and 2019 actually is infrastructure that is determining the brand for the city of Stonecrest. And I'm trying to find a delicate balance to encourage development in the city of Stonecrest, not discourage it, but to encourage it. However, to keep the Stonecrest comprehensive plan at the forefront. And I haven't quite figured out how we're going to do that, because whatever it is that we are approving, it becomes our brand. So I'm trying to find a delicate balance in how do we work through that without a comprehensive plan.
Well, as it's been going right now, staff has been reviewing development projects in conjunction with the information that they have received in terms of what the city's citizens said they wanted to see in the city of Stonecrest. So we have been taking some of that information that we do have into consideration with some of the projects, although I won't say we know everything. And like you said, the comprehensive plan has not been adopted as of yet. So we do try to take those details and information that we have received from our public surveys into consideration when looking at projects. So we do our best to try to approve or recommend approval of projects that we feel meet the intent of what the citizens of Stonecrest have stated they wanted to see in terms of development, as well as yourselves to encourage economic development within the city.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yes, sir. This text amendment, when we have a two-read text amendment issue, the next time it comes before council, will it come before as a public hearing, or would it come forth as a ordinance for approval?
You're only required to have one public hearing. In practice, we have been
Doing two.
re-advertising it.
So which would it be?
Well,
We've been doing two because of
when
the,
it's deferred, you've been doing two because
Yeah.
it's gone back to the planning commission.
and then it has to come back. But we also understand that mayor and council had requested that staff try to do as much public outreach and notice as possible. So we try to notify the public as much as possible whenever these items are coming forward. So
You have been doing, in some instances,
more than you're required.
Well, that's good. So then back to the LCI, you mentioned something about the LCI study in regards to what you guys looked at in regards to this text amendment. So am I hearing that staff has looked at, as Councilwoman Adoma pointed out, some of the items that may or may not be included in our comp plan, as well as the 2013 or whatever year the LCI study was done, all that was taken into consideration, and this project is in alignment with those items as much as you can tell.
Well, what I will say is that with the consultant as part of the comprehensive plan process, they have looked at all the studies that have been done within the city of Stonecrest. From the perspective of, as it relates to this particular text amendment, we have viewed it, but we have not gone through it thoroughly, which is the reason why I said we anticipate coming back with other amendments and changes because of the fact that we're going to go through our comprehensive plan process next month. And there may be adjustments that need to be made, even with, projects such as these, just to ensure that they do comply with what the vision is for the city of Stonecrest as part of the comprehensive plan process. So we have looked at it, but not thoroughly. The intention is to get through it as thoroughly as possible once we get some input from you all, as well as the citizens, once the document is provided and provides more detail about what is requested or what's wanted in the city in terms of land use.
And that's part of what I was talking about earlier tonight in our work session, the overlay steering committee, the Stonecrest overlay steering committee, and I think that would actually add to this, add input to this as well. But, in this particular text amendment, I do think we should move forward with it at some point in time. And if we can bring that, from what I'm hearing, we have no options now other than to bring it back to city council and, as another public hearing item.
No, you're not required to have another public hearing under your ordinance.
Okay, so, and that's what I'm trying to really get to. Are we or are we not bringing it back? How is that decided? Who decides that?
You would decide whether you wanted to put it on the next agenda or whether you wanted to have another public hearing for your
Sure.
second reading.
Okay, I'm done.
It only requires a public hearing once in front of the planning commission and once in front of you all, unless the length of time has gone so long that we need to start over.
Council? Councilwoman?
Yeah. Attorney Curry. So in theory, we've been practicing the two reads, and I guess I just want to go on the record saying that we need to probably figure out who we're going to be there so that we know whether it's one, so that we'll have some consistency with the, I'm not comfortable with the flipping back and forth when it's convenient. I'd like to have some consistency there if we may. My other question is for Ms. Dozier. I'm digressing now back to the comprehensive plan. The mission and the vision, I just read the mission and the vision for the city of Stonecrest. I know we don't have a comp plan, but are we looking at any of the information and from the mission and the vision when we're approving these text amendments to see if those projects are aligning with, because we do have that. We don't have a comp plan, but we know what the vision is, we know what the mission is, and we can use that. I mean, I know it's not detailed. It's not a comp plan. I understand that. And you guys are doing a phenomenal job. I appreciate what you do. But my biggest concern is what will my city look like at the end of the day when we get to the comprehensive plan in March or April? Whatever we have, we have. How will that impact the ability to attract quality businesses here in Stonecrest and to improve the quality of life for my constituents and for myself and for all the stakeholders in Stonecrest? I want to go back to remind you that I am in favor of development. And I want development, but I want my city to be a quality city, and I want the citizens to have a high quality of life. And the mission and the vision statement can at least give us some direction and what direction we need to be moving in.
Okay, one of the things I will mention to you is that the vision and the mission statement for the city of Stonecrest is included in the vision and the mission statement for the comprehensive plan. Your comprehensive plan does have a housing element that does have some goals and objectives. And we believe that these projects, as they are now, do meet some of those goals and objectives. And so, once again, we have viewed the document that you have stated specifically. You're right, it is not a comp plan. It is a vision mission statement for the city. We have included it as part of the comprehensive plan, and we do look at that as well when we look to make recommendations as it relates to these projects that are coming forward currently. And we're just doing that in lieu of waiting for the comprehensive plan to proceed.
One further question. Are we having a conversation about the attraction of businesses to Stonecrest, how that relates to the approval of the zoning and the development, how will that help draw the business, whatever, whatever we're looking to, what our brand is, because we haven't really determined the brand.
What I will tell you is part of the comprehensive plan is to have an economic development plan. As you know, your economic development staff is working on a marketing study to see what type of businesses should be here in the city of Stonecrest. Some of that information is included as part of the comprehensive plan and is outlined in your short-term work plan as some of the projects that shall be completed as the comp plan is adopted. So economic development, small business development, all those sort of things are being incorporated within the comprehensive plan and will be reviewed every time a project comes through as part of the comprehensive plan review once it's adopted.
Thank you very much. Mr. City Manager, can you speak to our existing comp plan that we're working from?
Yes, great point. So the city did adopt the county's comp plan early on. So there is currently a comp plan in place. What we're doing now is, again, this is a more personalized version that was adopted previously by the county. That was adopted because we have to have something in place, and now we're going through the exercise of adopting our own. I would also like to say, and Nicole touched on it, in regards to the vision and mission, yes, we do, as Nicole stated, take those into account, but I want to make sure it's clear for everyone, we are still bound by the codes and the ordinances and the zoning that mandates and dictates what, the action at the end of the day, what action we can take. So as a part of the process from the comp plan, we've talked about it a little bit during the retreat, is the zoning rewrite that would likely accompany right behind this. So that's part of the process. Once we determine exactly what that picture should look like, we still need to have, concrete codes and zoning to substantiate carrying out the type of development that we really want. And again, Nicole has mentioned the economic development plan. It's also been in the works as well.
Okay, thank you. Since this is the first read, we'll get another crack at it, unless there's another pressing question.
I have another question for Attorney Curry. For clarity, can you help me understand what would be the process to modify some of the zoning codes that Mr. Harris just spoke about?
The process to modify?
Process to modify.
Well, you can do a zoning change yourself as council and go through the same process that you're talking about. It doesn't have to be initiated by a landowner.
Text amendment.
Okay?
That's what we're doing, right?
Well,
Another question?
Well, no. I mean, no. As far as rezoning property, the question would be this: if it's a rezoning, it's only a one-read ordinance. If it's a text amendment, it's a two-read ordinance because you're amending the code by the language.
Okay?
Yeah, and I'm sorry, Mayor Pro Tem.
Go ahead.
And just to quickly kind of to follow up, it's, so as we complete the comp plan, if there are comprehensive sweeping codes that we want to change, that would initiate, again, that's the conversation in regards to the zoning rewrite, if that's something that we choose, the council chooses to move forward with.
Thank you very much. Once again, our options tonight will be to,
Well, your options tonight are you've had your first reading, you've had the public hearing you're required to have by law, so it would come back at the next meeting for the second read.
to close this out, that's what I'm saying.
That's correct. In practice, all the text amendments we've had, you've ended up referring them back to the
Planning Commission.
but you're not required to do that.
But if you refer them back to the planning commission, then you start over again.
Yeah. So right now, we could just accept this as first read and prepare for the second read.
Try.
Any action necessary?
No action.
No action necessary. Okay, thank you. That concludes public hearing. Next item on the agenda is public comment. Madam Clerk, how much time do we have for public comment and how much per person?
Each speaker will speak for 3 minutes, and the public comment is, I believe it's 30 minutes.
30 minutes.
30 minutes.
30 minutes. All right.
I have 5 speakers.
5 speakers. At this time, if you wish to make public comments, you may come to the podium.
I have Bill
Speaker number 1.
Buckner, Darrell Taylor, Jay Cofield. I'm sorry, Jay Cofield was second. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Good evening, council members.
Evening.
Thank you for this time. My name's Bill Bruckner. I'm a resident of the Parks of Stonecrest, a member of District 5. I've been sitting on the sidelines of several meetings concerning SPLOST and have heard a lot of information, interpretations, I'm sure misinterpretations, accusations, speculations, and rumors. As a concerned citizen, I'm confused, and I think a lot of my fellow citizens feel the same way. So I came up with an idea on how we could possibly address this, which I think is an equitable way to do that. I propose that our communications director, Adrian Bell, write up a little history of how the city started working with Grice Consulting up to the current time. He would also interview each of the council members and the mayor to get their viewpoints on working with Grice. After completing his article, Mr. Bell would make sure the council members felt it was a fair representation of their views, and then the article could be posted on the City of Stonecrest website. That way, citizens could get a transparent understanding of the situation and the position of each council member from the source. And hopefully would avoid speculation, rumors, and so on. That's my idea for what it's worth. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you for your comments. Next.
Good evening, council.
Evening.
My name is Darrell Taylor, and I too am a member of the Parks of Stonecrest, District 5. My concern that I have tonight is around the resolution to amend the formation of the SPLOST Citizens Oversight Advisory Committee and appointment of members. I have one statement. The formation of the committee for the SPLOST Citizen Oversight went through a work session, and it was approved twice by the council. Let that sink in. It went through a work session, and it was approved twice by the council. Let that sink in.
Thank you. Next.
Ms. Cofield. Dave Marcus, Bernie Knight. Hold on, Ms. Cofield.
My first comment is going to be about the Blue Room. And I was deeply troubled when it appeared that, because I am a retired police sergeant. I think everybody should tell the pace in the game. That it was said that the DeKalb County Police at some point was kind of confused about what they were supposed to do in ordinances. The police only respond to calls, make arrests, and refer them to the appropriate district attorney or solicitor. The responsibility for the licensing, the occupation, and the liquor license of a business rests with you guys. And I was troubled to learn tonight that you guys don't appear to have anybody that's available to do revocations, even though you have people that can give licenses. So, that's just my opinion on that. I'm also concerned about the fact that we're going about development and we're not having a master plan. We're not bringing in stuff, while on both sides of us and all around us, we see what everybody would consider appropriate and highly desired development. So that was my other thing. Now, on the third thing, I'm going to talk about something that affects me directly. It took me 2 years to find my house because I had certain things I wanted. When I moved into my house, I moved into an area that was a conservation area where we had trees. We had a new landowner to come in that cut down over 100 trees. I took the matter to DeKalb County Code Enforcement. They came out the very next day, early in the morning, issued him a stop work order, told him not to cut down any more trees. He waited until we became a city, and he then cut down over 150 trees while I was out of the country. I notified your code enforcement. He said he told them he didn't know he wasn't supposed to cut them down. So I then went back myself to DeKalb County, pulled all the records of DeKalb County, provided pictures of what the lot had looked like, and he's still cutting down trees after your code enforcement came out, told him don't cut down any more trees. Now, the problem part is that we are backing up to the firing range. So even though gunfire doesn't bother me, at night, DeKalb County, 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, they're out there firing. So all those trees that he took down have become a hazard, and they become just a nuisance. And the fact of the matter is, it doesn't seem anybody's concerned about it. Now, I have all the documentation that he was told. I have the documentation that I sent you the pictures of it, and he still continues to cut down trees. Now, that might seem like a little petty thing to you, but I moved into what I thought was an R1, and you always hear me say this, a R100 area. I knew that the land in back of me was conservation. On one side of him is land that's owned by DeKalb County. On the other side is the farm. So for him to take down all of these trees and everything and not be required to put them back is very troubling. And oh, by the way, it's I think $1,000 to a $5,000 fine for taking down trees. So if you need some money, you might want to go talk to him.
Thank you very much. Next.
Dave Marcus and Bernie Knight.
Members of the council, good evening.
Good evening.
According to Matthew 12:25, Jesus knew their thoughts and said to them, "Every kingdom divided against itself will be ruined, and every city or household divided against itself will not stand." And by the way, I want to say for the record, it looks like I'm addressing only three of you. Ms. Adoma and Ms. Coble have apparently other things to do. Stonecrest is divided. It's been so almost our entire existence. Distrust and fear are rampant, and I doubt that anybody, however.
Hold on 1 minute.
You don't have a quorum.
Right.
Hold your comments for a second.
Yeah.
We'll wait for them.
And the truth shall set you free.
All right. We now have a quorum.
Can we go back to the beginning of the 3 minutes?
Yes, let him start over.
According to Matthew 12:25, Jesus knew their thoughts and said to them, "Every kingdom divided against itself will be ruined, and every city or household divided against itself will not stand." Stonecrest is divided and has been since day one, virtually. Distrust and fear are rampant, but I doubt that anybody in this room thinks that anybody else has their own interests above the city of Stonecrest. You all are here, we all are here for one reason, and that is to make Stonecrest succeed. Whether we liked the idea in the first place, whether we voted in the first place, it's real, it's here, it is ours. The council, at the mayor's instigation, ramped up an advisory committee of people with deep experience with public works projects, with project management, procurement, finance, legal, and other areas of expertise as an advisory committee for the county. People did not look at it for what it was. People said, they didn't pick members the way I wanted. There aren't enough regular people on the committee. The mayor is doing this just to get his way. We had 2 meetings. The mayor was at the first one for about 20 minutes and left, subsequently appointed someone else to take his place. He has not communicated with me as the chair of the committee or anybody else on the committee whatsoever since the committee was ramped up. He is not running the committee or influencing it, yet people think he is. I didn't volunteer to be chair of the committee, but was elected, and I said before the vote that I would be a lightning rod for your suspicions and your suspicions. I understand that to be true now, but ask Councilman Turner, George that is, or Councilman Clanton if I tried to influence the committee unduly at meetings. I didn't. They'll say no. What I did as chair is to keep things on track and moving. And so we made 4 recommendations, each passing the committee unanimously. You don't like the recommendations and are suspicious of their origin? So be it. We are an advisory committee, but you don't have to take our advice. You think we didn't have enough information? That's fine, just provide it, and we will reconsider. As it was, we went off public record, off presentations that were made to the council, from documents, from open records requests, and from watching the SPLOST processes since it started. Just understand, as you talk about the motion to disband the committee and restart it in February or later, that none of us are political. We are on no one's side except that of citizens. Our job is to make sure that SPLOST money is spent intelligently and effectively on projects that are prioritized and equitably distributed through Stonecrest. I agreed to a 4-year commitment because I thought that this committee, with transparency in its operation, with support from the council, could restore some of the trust in the council and the city that has been eroded. You'll not be voting tonight to modify rules. You're voting to throw the baby out with the bathwater and to restart a new committee once the largest projects, largest contracts are given and already out the door. It would be better and more productive if you figured out how to fix the committee rather than disband it and bring it back in several months.
Thank you very much. Next.
Good evening. I wanted to briefly talk about the timeline of the Stonecrest LCI plan, how it came about, and what we perceive in the Business Alliance and in the Stonecrest overlay community, what should be done with it. The overlay itself was created in 2001. It was done basically by the Board of Commissioners. There was, as far as I could tell, very little public input, and it stayed that way for years. There were revisions with some stakeholder input in 2008 and 2010. But by 2012, there was a growing perception that, first of all, a master plan, creating a vision for the core area of the overlay was badly needed. Also, there was a growing perception that parts of the plan, the design guidelines, the map, the text, were badly out of date and needed to be revised to reflect what the reality of development and the future of development in the overlay were. So, an application was made to the Atlanta Regional Commission, and in last quarter of 2013, this was approved by the Board of Commissioners. It's been carried forward into our comprehensive plan, and it makes specific recommendations that the county, now the city, should work closely with a strong, they use that word, partnership, with the stakeholders within the Stonecrest overlay community to come up with changes. And one of the key changes is revisions, necessary revisions to the Stonecrest overlay. That is exactly what we want to do. Now, the advisory group, the overlay task force, began working with the county in 2014. It took 2 years of work. It should not have taken that long. Frankly, we don't think that the planning department, and I love those people over there, put sufficient resources into it. It took way longer to reach the point that we reached, which, by the way, was not a complete draft. It was interrupted by the creation of the city, which we're very glad of, but the documentation, the proposed draft map and text, which our planning director, Ms. Dozier, now has, is not by any means a final or complete draft. It was interrupted. I want to emphasize that. One of the things that we perceive now, especially 2 years later, when the existing overlay has become even more out of date, is that we need stakeholder community input into helping to complete the draft of our recommendations and then giving it to Ms. Dozier, giving it to City Council, and us all working together in a collaborative way to try to get this done, but have it reflect the needs of the stakeholder community, both residential and business, within the overlay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else? And that completes our public comment section of the agenda. Next on the agenda is, where are we? The consent agenda items, and they have been changed a little bit. So to get them back in order. You'll have the, first one is the swearing in of the,
Could we do them in order, at number 5, and just do them in 12 and 13, even though there'll be consent so that it's consistent when I.
okay. Consent item number 5,
Number 12 and number 13.
12, and 13. And I get a motion for action on number 5.
You do them all together.
You do them all together.
But still, we got to move for action, and then we will adopt them all at one time. Is that
In
not
other
the way?
words,
Is that not the
somebody
way
makes
we
a
do
motion
it?
to adopt the
Hold on,
consent agenda.
Let me get from the attorney. I'm sorry.
Somebody makes a motion to adopt the consent agenda, then it's seconded, and they're all taken at once.
Okay, but at some point, we need to read them into the record. Do we not?
Okay. The consent agenda is number 5, the intergovernmental agreement for solid waste management services with DeKalb County.
That's number 5. And number 12 is,
Resolution to authorize the mayor to swear in the police chief, majors, and fire officials.
and number 13
Is the resolution to authorize the city council to utilize the same individuals appointed to hear alcohol license appeal cases, to hear business license appeal cases.
Can I get a motion for action on the consent agenda?
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I move to adopt the entire consent agenda.
Second it.
Been properly moved and second to adopt the entire consent agenda. You ready for the question?
Ready?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. The consent agenda is hereby adopted. The next item
Number 3.
is going to be number
3.
3, which was pulled off the consent agenda. And number 3 is lot combination of Lakeview at Stonecrest subdivision. And there are 6 lots on Rockland Road. Those lots are 7196, 7340, 7345, 7280, 7226, and 7290 Rockland Road. Staff?
It's as you stated, essentially, the applicant is requesting to combine 7 lots. I believe that the initial report has the drawing that outlines all the lots that they're requesting to be combined together. In this particular instance, the applicant came forward with a project. It appears that they did not do their lot combination prior to proceeding with proposing a site plan for the development of the site. So staff has informed the applicant that they have to go through the process of combining the lots to proceed with their project. So that is what they're proceeding with. That's all staff has as it relates to the item. It's just a lot combination.
Counsel?
Why the, per our code, that anything beyond.
I'm sorry. Okay, so when it comes to, thank you, when it comes to lot combinations, staff is only allowed to approve the combination of 2 lots together. Anything greater than 2 lots is required to come and get approval from mayor and council. So that is the reason why the item is coming before you.
Counsel? Councilwoman Odama? Odama.
Thank you, Ms. Dozier. For clarity again, can you elaborate a little bit on what the master plan is once the lots are combined?
Okay, this property, I believe, has already a plan approved for it. It is for Rockland, 7280 Rockland Road. It's Rockhaven Homes. They are proposing to do construction of a 284-unit subdivision on this location. Once again, as I stated before, they have come forward with a plan to do this. However, in reviewing the plan, staff has noted that the applicant did not have the lots initially combined as required, and therefore required the applicant to go through the replatting process, where they combined the lots together and then proceeded with their project as they have specifically requested.
So how are they currently zoned?
Currently, the property is zoned OD, and it's within the Stonecrest overlay. Tier 3, thank you.
Oh, okay. So are these rental properties or for sale?
For sale. I believe the applicant is here. If you have specific questions, is someone here from there that can answer Councilmember Adama's questions? Thank you.
And if I could just interject, we are not here tonight to approve the development, if that helps. Just the combination of, and I know it's a kind of a strange thing to have before you.
Yeah.
And it's certainly welcome to ask questions, but I just want to make sure that we all understand that this is just about where the lines of the lot will be. The applicant will have to come back to you again to subdivide into those 284 lots
And I
before they
understand
build.
that.
I just want to make sure.
No, I understand it. I just have questions. I understand the process.
I don't know, I think Councilwoman Cobble did not understand, so.
Oh, I'm sorry. I can't see her there.
Yeah, but the question on the table is, yes, okay.
Is he coming forward to answer the question?
Council Brad Hughes with Rockhaven Homes, 4062 Peachtree Road, Northeast Atlanta, 30319. And this, we actually submitted this preliminary plat, combination plat back in April and got it approved in April and then submitted our LDP and went through that process. It just never, I think it just came about through Chris Wheel that we needed to have a public hearing to actually approve it because we had more than 3 lots that we were combining. So, but to answer your question, no, it's not a rental. It's for sale, fee simple townhomes and for sale detached homes, single-family homes.
Follow-up question. Will they have their own separate water, gas, and electric meters?
Yes.
Okay? That was it? Thank you very much. Anyone else? Okay. That being the case, I'll entertain a motion for action on this item.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I offer motion that we approve the item.
Motion on the floor. Properly moved and seconded. This item be approved. Are you ready for the question?
Ready?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposers, say nay. Motion carries. Next item for consideration is the lot combination Part D, Parks of Stonecrest subdivision.
Once again, it's the same situation, except in this particular instance, the applicant has gone about getting the lots combined prior to proceeding with their particular project. They have 3 lots that they would like to combine to do a subdivision development on their parcel.
That's it? Council?
Okay.
We have one question.
Ms. Dozier, same question. What is the master plan?
I don't believe I have the information regarding this particular project. Is he here to, okay, so we do have the applicant or the person proposing or requesting the lot combination here, so I think he could be here, he can come forward and address Councilmember Adama's question regarding the particulars of your project.
Okay. Jay Coombe, I'm with D.R. Horton. We're at 1371 Dogwood Drive Southwest in Conyers. Coombe, C-O-O-M-B-E. So can you repeat the question for me, please?
Yes. What is the master plan once these lots are combined?
We've submitted an LDP for, I believe, 117 units. So, single-family detached homes that would mirror or very closely resemble the existing homes within the parks at Stonecrest.
For sale or for rent?
For sale?
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? All right. Council, are you ready for action?
We ready?
Entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I make a motion that lot combination Part D Parks of Stonecrest subdivision be accepted.
Second.
And properly moved and second that this item be accepted. You ready for the question?
Yes.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposers, nay. Motion carries. Number 10, agenda items. 2019 Planning Commission meeting schedule. Community Development, you still on?
That's Will, you right?
Okay, well, at the last Planning Commission meeting, the Planning Commission members put forward their meeting schedule for 2019, and we are just bringing it forward for adoption by Mayor and Council.
And you will also be adopting your own zoning calendar and ratifying the ZBAs as well. And then, as Nicole noted in her report, one thing I did just want to put on your radar is the Planning Commission members' terms expires this
Correct.
year, as does the ZBA. So we will either have new appointments or reappointments in January.
Is it all members or just,
All members.
All members.
oh, that's not good.
We put together a nice little cheat sheet for you all to use in terms of figuring out whether you would like to just reappoint the existing members or if you have recommendations for others.
Well, we're bringing it up at another time, but at some point, I think it should be staggered. But that's for another discussion.
We do have
Meanwhile,
staggered times in our, I think it's the Planning Commission specifically, but the BZA does not have staggered times, unless I said it reversed. Is it
They both-
reversed, Michael?
They both expire at the end of the year. We had some people who are filling out unexpired terms.
Right.
okay. Well, we'll have to revisit that. Meanwhile, this question is only on the Planning Commission meeting schedule. Am I
Yes.
correct?
This is for the Planning Commission meeting schedule. Yes, we'll be bringing forth BZA at a later meeting.
I take it you've all had a chance to take a look at it? Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
We're gonna need to make these reappointments before the year is out, right?
Correct.
Yes, ma'am.
So when is that coming back?
As soon as Mr. Harris.
Yeah, we can do that. Yeah, they provided me with the list today, so I'll make copies before you leave out today. And again, as Nicole noted, it's a simple form that shows everyone, all the appointments on here. You can indicate if you want to reappoint or the name of a person that you'd like to move forward. So I'll make sure you have that before you leave out today.
Thank you. Back to the question at hand. 2019 Planning Commission meeting schedule. You ready for action? I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, I make a motion that we adopt the 2019 Planning Commission meeting schedule.
Have a motion.
Second.
Been properly moved and seconded. We adopt the 2019 Planning Commission meeting schedule. You ready for the question? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposers, nay. Motion carries. Number 7, an ordinance adopting Chapter 22 of the City Code, Solid Waste. First read.
Good evening. As you know, we approved our IGA tonight with DeKalb County. One of the provisions of the IGA is that we agree to adopt DeKalb County's version of Chapter 22. So that is what this ordinance does. I think you discussed it during your last work session.
That's it?
Yes, sir.
Council, questions? No questions? Then I'll entertain a motion for action.
It's just a
I'm sorry, first read. That's the action. Get ready for the second read. Number 8, an ordinance adopting Chapter 22.5 to the City Code, Storm Sewer, Illicit Discharge, and Illegal Connection.
This
First read.
This, again, I apologize, is going to be a requirement of your IGA. DeKalb County will hopefully be maintaining the stormwater system. And if DeKalb with the other cities has required us to adopt similar language, this is basically the stormwater talking about the drainage and the stormwater. This is the first read. You talked about it at your last work session. Since we haven't finalized the IGA for this one and the next one, we went ahead and put it on your agenda, but we would recommend that you wait actually adopting them until we have that IGA. Hopefully, we'll be able to bring that back to you next meeting or the next, but we'd like to defer the second reading until we have the IGA finalized.
Okay. Any questions? Council? No questions? Then we will move on to the next item. Item number 9, an ordinance adopting Chapter 25 to the City Code, Water, Sewer, and Sewage Disposal. First read.
The same thing applies to this ordinance. We don't have the IGA finalized yet. We have the first read, but we'd like to defer the vote on it until we have the IGA actually finalized. And this is about this is about water and sewer hookups and that service that DeKalb will be providing.
Thank you. Any questions, council? No questions? Then we will accept this as the first read, and we'll be ready for deferral if it is not ready by the time we get the second read.
Emily, would you like me to just not bring it back until you tell me that it's ready?
With your permission, we'd like to not bring it back until we have
Do you have the IGA?
You need action to make that happen, or just state it and it will be done? Okay. All right. Item number 10, resolution to amend the resolution for the formation of the SPLOST Citizen Oversight Advisory Committee and appointment of members. Council?
I'll start if you don't mind, since I was not.
Councilwoman Cobble.
I wasn't present at the last meeting, so I'll start with this one. So what we actually have, we have passed out to the council electronically and a hard copy. And also, I believe, Brenda, did you put copies for did you make extra copies?
I gave it to the attorney.
Okay. So there's a revision to the resolution that was presented at the last council meeting. As our attorney made us aware that there were some discrepancies between the city code and the proposed resolution. So we've gone back and made some changes and then submitted that again today. So we're here to just kind of discuss the revision and get council's weigh in, our attorney weigh in, and see how we can make amends to what's heavy on folks' hearts.
So just to be clear, is this agenda item for discussion?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, for
Only?
discussion.
Yes.
Yes.
I just say, yeah, discussion only.
Yeah.
Then, Mr. Attorney, would you weigh in on the,
Yes, sir, I'll be glad to. Is that fine?
Yes, please, go ahead, please.
Okay, all right, thank you. We have an ordinance on the book. It's in Chapter 2 of the City Code, Article 5, which relates to advisory committees. And it says that the mayor can establish the committee, okay, which I think has taken place. It says the mayor is an ex officio member of the committee. It says that the city manager or designee shall oversee the meetings of each committee and is an ex officio non-voting member with that. So what took place at the last meeting was the mayor was actually a committee member, and he removed himself from it as a committee member. The ordinance itself doesn't require any limitation with respect to how many members can be on the committee. It's totally up to whatever the mayor's what he wishes as far as the number of members. There's no limitation on the number of members, and what you're proposing here is a limitation of 7 members when I think at this point in time there are now 12 members to a committee. with that. So that type of item would require a change in the ordinance that would take place. And if you wish to look at the ordinance, you can see that procedurally, this committee functions very much so with respect to the procedures that you all function with. There's an indication that they follow Robert's Rules of Order, but the procedures that are adopted and the ones that you've adopted, and I think the ones that they have reviewed, whether they've adopted them or not, I don't know, provides for Robert's Rules of Order. So that's not anything that requires a change in the ordinance at all, but I just bring it to your attention that all these things that are in here about open meetings and all of those things are in the ordinance as far as what's applied there. Then there's also the requirement that they comply just like you do with respect to notices. However, what you're doing here is requiring a greater notice requirement than what you're subject to, in which the ordinance says, this is going to be subject to the same notice requirements that you're subject to, but you are proposing to change that, and that would also have to require a change in the ordinance to do that. It talks about appointments. It talks about the members of the council bringing their appointments to the clerk of the council. That would require a change in the ordinance that's in effect at this time. There seems to be a change in, now I will say that it is for a term of 4 years if everybody thinks they're 4 years, but actually everybody has to be reappointed every January, just like everything else that would be there. And that too would also be subject to the approval of council so that the mayor, he could sit there and continue everybody, but then you would have to approve that with regard to that. So what you're proposing here, unless you change the ordinance, it wouldn't be a valid amendment.
So I'm not sure if you're reading the addition from today or prior, but the corrections that were noted from your emails throughout the week, we've made adjustments and resent that. So specific to the membership requirements, we did change the language where it is the mayor will nominate all 7 members and be approved by council. We did not see in the city code, in Article 5, where there is a specificity for how many members can be on the advisory committee. Now, specifically in Chapter 4, under boards, commissions, and authorities, it specifies under membership that the council shall determine the number of members on the body. If you read Article 5, as it pertains to membership, it does not specify the number of members for the committee to be selected by the mayor or the council.
So if you want to change it to require a limitation on the number, then the ordinance needs to be changed. There is no limitation. There is no limitation on the number that the mayor can appoint, and only the mayor can remove them. And that's what this says, and I believe you're suggesting somewhere in here that you all could remove somebody if you want to.
Nope.
Okay, but in any event,
No, that's not it.
My opinion, and is the fact that there is no limitation on the number of members that can be appointed. Now, if you want to limit that, then change the ordinance.
No, so the language does not say that we are limiting the number.
You say that, it says here that the oversight committee shall be composed of 7 members.
Right. So we're amending the number of members from the original ordinance. That is not setting a limitation, it's making an amendment to the
This wasn't
number of
an
members.
ordinance, this was a resolution.
Okay, resolution, I apologize.
So, but there's no limitation in the ordinance on how many members the mayor can appoint. I don't know how many different ways I can say this. I'm not certainly trying to be condescending in any way. I'm just telling you that if he wants 100 members on the committee, he could have 100 members on the committee. That's his choice.
And I understand that. So we have the authority to amend resolutions.
You have an authority to amend the ordinance. You can't amend a resolution that contradicts the ordinance. That's what you're doing.
You can't amend.
You have to amend the ordinance. If you want, you've got to go in and amend the ordinance as far as Article 5 on advisory committees and say that the committee shall be limited to 7 members. I mean,
Right.
if you want to go do that, then you can, you tell me, give me 2 sponsors and I'll be glad to draft the legislation.
So this is where we disagree, because the city code for Article 5 speaks to all advisory committees, regardless of the type of advisory committee. And there is no language that says that we cannot amend the number of members on the committee, nor does it specify that it's only up to the executive branch to determine how many members are on that committee. Now, it does specify that in Chapter 4, under authorities and commissions. It does not specify in Chapter 5 that that we cannot amend the number of members in any advisory committee, nor does it say that only the executive branch has the authority to determine the number of members. So what we've done is amended the resolution for the SPLOS committee, not the city code.
I tend to disagree with you. You have an ordinance, that's a law, you follow the law. It doesn't say that you can change the law. You have to go through the procedure of doing a new ordinance. So
I have not seen where the ordinance
just do it.
says that there is a requirement for that. The
It
ordinance
says-
is very generic for the membership. So we have not violated the city code. We've amended the resolution for the SPLOS committee.
Then the only thing I can suggest is this, is that if that's your position, then certainly you can pass the resolution, but I will tell you that, that's violating the ordinance. That's all I'm trying to tell you. I mean, if you want to do this, you can do it in 2 meetings. Just tell me you want me to amend the ordinance to put 7 members, and then you all can vote it up and down.
And wouldn't that apply to every advisory committee if we amended the code?
That's right.
Right.
Apply to every advisory committee.
So why would we want to limit ourselves for that for every advisory committee?
Why do you want to limit it for this one? Why are you wanting to limit it here? I mean, come on. I mean, I'm just giving you my advice. If you want to provide the ordinance that you would determine the number of members by resolution, but again, it's a mayor's committee. So if you're going to limit the executive branch, then you've got to go ahead and put the limitation in here. It's not here.
Right. Well, and I guess we're arguing the same point. It's not here. So if it doesn't specify that that comes from the executive branch and it cannot be amended, because according to the charter that I have, there's a section here that says every proposed ordinance or resolution shall be introduced in writing, and the city council shall have the authority to amend, disapprove, or approve any ordinance or resolution. So this is to amend the resolution for the SPLOS committee. It does not violate the city code.
I beg to differ with you is that the ordinance is going to take a precedence over any resolution. In other words, you cannot pass a resolution that contradicts what the law is, and that's what the ordinance is.
Okay.
So, just tell me what if you want to amend the ordinance, you'll be able to have it done. You go ahead and amend the ordinance.
Yes, we understand that. I think we're very aware of how to amend the city code is what you're referring to. So my argument is we're not violating the city code because the city code does not specify that the executive branch has the sole authority to limit the number of members on a committee. It does not say that. It does very specifically say that in Chapter 4 for authorities and boards and commissions. It does not have that language under advisory committees. And I would imagine that if that was the intention, that you would have wrote it there, just like we wrote it there for Chapter 4.
If you would, and this is where I'm differing with you, and I'm advising you that you need to change the ordinance. If you feel differently, then my recommendation would be is that the board engage counsel to advise it, not me. I've given you my advice.
All right, is there any other area in the revised resolution that you feel contradicts the code?
I'll be glad, I just went through it with you, and I'll be glad to go over it again, but why don't you just let me put it in writing to you? And I'll put it in writing to all the council members.
To the current revision? Because
Yeah,
what
to the
you
current
did
revision.
read out loud was not the current revision from today.
Was this, well, tell me.
So under the terms, it originally said 4 years, but according to the same city code that we're discussing, it says every committee member
That's right.
only serves for 1 fiscal year. So we've made that change to remove the 4-year term to say exactly what the city code says, which is 1 fiscal year.
And that's correct.
Okay, but that's not what you read earlier. So I just wanted to make sure that you're reading through what was revised today.
Miss Jasmine, where's my, what I have? Here we go. So we can make sure that I got the right one. The last one that I received.
Right.
So just so you can confirm that that's the last one, then that's the one that I'll comment on, or have been commenting.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. That's all I have to discuss.
Right. Well, you made mention also that we've increased the requirement for public notice.
That's right, 1 week.
So that was already originally from the original SPLOST resolution. That's not our change. That was, the 1 week was already there. What we removed was an agenda attached to that.
What I'm saying is you have procedures that are established in the ordinance. This tends to, if you're telling me that your procedure as far as this city council is 1 week's notice of all meetings and everything that's in there, then that would be, then you'd be okay with that. You also say here that that no member of the SPLOST Citizen Oversight shall receive compensation or reimbursement for services. The ordinance says it may, or, you know, it doesn't preclude it from having any sort of compensation element. This does. Now, I know that they're not going to get paid, but I'm just saying if when I go through this and I tell you what needs to be changed in order for you to do this appropriately, then that's fine. And then if you do that, then, you know, then you've complied with the ordinance once it's been amended.
May I add?
Okay.
No, just to add a comment I made before, and that is that when this was put together, it appeared to have the markings of a board, even an authority or a commission, more so than a committee. And if you look at the requirements for a committee, such that, for example, what has already been said, and that is that it serves 1 year. It's the first thing that it starts out with. Whereas with boards and authorities, they can go up to 4 years and whatnot. And a lot of the other powers that were vested in boards were also put together on the first definition of this particular committee, which I think went beyond what a committee was supposed to do. Matter of fact, with the election of the officers, usually the mayor appoints a chair of the committee, or vice, and a vice chair, and matters of that nature, which led me to accept this as more than just a committee, and that was of a big concern of mine.
Well, I mean, the comments that have been put in as far as making sure that it had no authority, it was just a recommend. I mean, those, that's all contemplated in here, and that's fine. I mean, I see no point in that, but if you start limiting what the authority of the mayor is compared to what the ordinance says, then you are changing it. You are changing, so change the ordinance. It's real simple.
So you're saying what we have here as amendments need to be changed by the ordinance?
I will go through and tell you what needs to be changed by the ordinance.
One.
Just the one thing?
Not necessarily, you know.
Okay, so can we go?
But I will go, unless you want
Oh,
me
you
to.
need to go through?
I was gonna write.
Okay.
I was gonna put it to writing so everybody would have it.
Right, okay.
Mr. Mayor, may I suggest one thing? If, before you got here, Mr. Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem had established that this was a discussion.
It's a discussion.
Just a discussion, not for vote. That being the case, I would say that it would be only prudent that we go back and allow Councilwoman Adabo, Councilwoman Adabo. Councilwoman Cabo and Councilman Turner to have a space to, to air out their issues with the city attorney and maybe bring back whatever they need to bring back after the fact. But, at the bottom line is that this is a mayor's commission. I mean, this is a mayor's committee. He gets to appoint the members of the committee. We have this committee. The committee has been in fact for two meetings, I believe, have 12 members. They have actually brought recommendations to council. I think we should move along with that. It doesn't take well, I'm not going to go there, but we should move forward with what we have now. And if there's anything addition that Cabo has to add, then it should go to the attorney, Councilwoman Cabo.
And I'm not against Attorney Curry looking at it. I mean, I would like to say that I think there has been opportunity for that, and the only thing that you've given to us is you can't do this. So I look forward to more detail and you guiding us on how we can. I'm happy to hear that in public. But I'd like to also mention that we have the authority to amend legislation. That is our job. So if we are going to be chastised for amending legislation, then why are we here? We have the authority, we have the ability to revise any piece of legislation that we create, including even if it's zoning. So this is just exercising that authority, that ability, that opportunity. If we feel there's a need to make adjustments or amendments, we ought to give those valuable consideration. And all we're trying to do is better align the committee to a committee. It seems like there is a lot of mixing of board authority and committee authority. So the idea is to align the resolution to be more fitting for a committee. It's not to dissolve. It's to more align as a committee. There is areas, which we have pointed out, where you have taken from the board section of the code and from the committee section of the code and mixed them together. We'd like to delineate the two so that this committee has the authority and powers of a committee.
Well, and just, if I may just answer what you were saying, yes, you do have the power to change the legislation, and that's what I was suggesting, that if you wish to change it, then change it.
Yeah, I understand that. We just disagree about which piece of legislation to change, but we can do both.
Well, a resolution is not legislation.
Okay, Attorney Curry, I have a quick question. How difficult would it be for you to convert the resolution to an ordinance? Because as Councilwoman Cabo stated, we do have the power to amend and to create law. Matter of fact, not only do we have the power, but that's one of the main responsibilities and duties of the legislative branch.
Well, I guess haven't been clear enough, Ms. Adama, but yes, that's right. And you can do an ordinance and you can amend what this ordinance says to fit what you want. That's all I've said. Just tell me, give me two sponsors and I'll fix it for you. Then you just got to vote through it. I mean, that's, just like any ordinance, you're going to have a first read and then a vote on the second read.
Right, but I'm just asking you to exercise your legal duty and to create an ordinance that's reflective of what Councilwoman Cabo just mentioned.
So you would so you'll be a sponsor of the ordinance?
I certainly will.
One other? I'll be glad to draft it. Tell me who else. I just need one more.
I'll sponsor.
I don't
Okay.
count.
All right. Okay, all right.
Are we still in the discussion mode?
Yep, it's only for discussion. We weren't voting.
Very good. So Attorney Curry, while you're at it, I'll give you some ordinances to change for every committee that I've put together. Because we're not going to single out the SPLOST committee for whatever reason, for whoever's feelings, whatever this is. Because this was set up the same way that the committee for Arabia Mountain, that respectfully you chair, Councilman Turner, along with the co-chair, along with Mayor Cardenas. There was no grave difference with regards to how this was set up compared to how the other committees are set up. If we're going to be adults about it, we would just sit here and just tell the truth that you all aren't happy with the results that the people have come up with regards to the recommendation. All of this menandering and maneuvering and trying to get all this stuff changed and done. I want 7 members instead of 11. Nonsense. That is simply where this is. So if we're going to change it all, just like Attorney Curry said, we're going to change everything. Because once we put committees in place, once you all have voted on the members that came out of each one of you all's territory, and now all of a sudden, people are unhappy or dissatisfied or have something that's different. We're going through this whole exercise now about what can get changed, how many members. I want 7 members instead of 11. Well, if that's the case, then who are you all going to call up to the front and drop off? Which one of you guys are going to call them up to the front and say, Dave Marcus, you're not good enough. Suzanne Frick, nah, you live in the parks of Stonecrest, no way. Since we're having the discussion, since we're just having the discussion, let's just put it out on the table that people sitting out here in the audience, they are not dumb. And they're sitting right up here looking at us knowing what this is going on. It's really just that simple. You know? Councilwoman Coleman, you can be upset about this all you want.
I'm not upset. I just
Okay, well, allow me the same courtesy I allowed you. That's all I ask. Allow me the same courtesy I allowed you. So all I'm saying is that this farce, or whatever you all want to call it, is not going to get you any closer to what you really want. And we won't say that here today. Let these committees do what the committees do, because I didn't try to unravel any other committee that you all have that everybody sits on. Now it comes down to the SPLOST committee, and the whole world has their hands in the pie. I didn't get the members I wanted. I didn't get the folks I wanted. I don't like what they said. I feel disrespected. Nonsense. You know what this is about, since we just having a discussion. Mr. Turner.
First of all, I did go back to the overlay committee with the Arabia Mountain, as you mentioned it the last time, that was a comparison. And they are markedly different. And that is what I compared it to in terms of this committee versus the Arabia Mountain Overlay Committee. And you can compare the two. They don't match at all in terms of the responsibilities and in terms of the structure of the committee. There are some things in that are just boilerplate same. Now, in terms of what we want out of this, what we are dissatisfied with the last report or recommendation we got from this committee, I stated it there and then, is that they told us nothing that we had not heard before from you directly. So to say we're dissatisfied with what they brought us is to say we were dissatisfied with the position we took when you brought it to us.
But you would be insinuating that I told them what to tell you all.
No, what I'm saying
that's
is
exactly what you're saying.
No,
you said it was no different than what I just said with them. When the 11 independent members had their own meeting, had their own conclusions that they presented. So don't say that this is not the Jason Larry Committee.
You can
that's built by all of you all up here.
You can call it purely coincidental, but with the recommendation that they brought were the same recommendations that we had already voted on before.
So you think so with that, having a discussion, we're just having a discussion.
He's so much more.
Is it that, Councilman Turner, that they might be right? They might be right.
They might be right.
Okay.
And they might be wrong.
I don't understand that.
They need all of the information, and that is what we've been trying to get.
I don't understand how they don't have all the information since this has been discussed for months, and most of them come to city council meeting.
Well, and that was the next thing. When they came to the meeting, we had not seen a list as to who was going to be on this committee, other than the one or two people that we may have nominated, and they were introduced. This is the committee. Vote them up or vote them down.
Oh,
now, do we embarrass them and say, boom, right here, right now?
Do you have voters' remorse? Is that what you're talking about?
No. What I'm saying is, we didn't get a chance to review the committee because you said mayor recommends, city council approves.
But Councilman
Can't
Turner,
approve it if you haven't seen them.
Okay. So let me take it down a notch. I tried to give every council person an opportunity on every committee to select who they want. Every opportunity. I give that for several reasons. One, even though it's the mayor's appointment and you all's confirmation, I still think you should have a say. I still think you should interview your own people. All the things to make sure those folks want to serve. So you all did that. So you picked your people. Then I picked some different people from different districts. That's in all fairness, there's nothing wrong with that. So now we call them all together. You know who you picked. We stand up here. We raised our hand and voted on them. We took the picture, shook the hand. They went to work. Now we have voters' remorse. How is it that these other people aren't doing whatever it is that you want them to do, or whether our feelings got hurt, or, I just, as we sit here, Councilman, all due respect to all the council people that's sitting up here, all due respect, those people have 10 times the experience we have with SPLOS and all these other pieces that we have together. And now, the other committees that are together, we're not micromanaging those committees. We're not barreling it down to what those people are. We're not going back into the ordinances or resolutions and unraveling it. I said, you know what? Well, I don't think those three people should be on this thing. See, we're not doing it. We're only doing this, just having a conversation. We're only doing this with SPLOS committee. We're only doing it, just call it the way it is. So, like Attorney Curry said, if we're going to undo something, or undo one of them, we're going to undo them all. That's where we are. And the fact of the matter is, because you all disagree, you just disagree. So what? But we have people here that's on this committee that have presented, that have worked hard, that have given their recommendations, and just so happens, if I feel that way, I feel that way. So let me give you something else too, and I'll make it quick and we'll get off of it. You all had heartburn. Oh, the mayor's sitting on the committee. Oh, my goodness. So what do? I come off the committee before we have any real meeting, appoint somebody else to sit in that spot. When each one of you all, not only do you sit on a committee, but you lead the committee. I didn't participate in the negotiations with regards to the whole Grice situation. I appointed you for that, Councilman Turner. I didn't sit in any of the meetings. I hadn't done anything but try to stay away from the situation. But that's not good enough for you all. You want to bring it down to the ground and try to kill it. Just having a conversation.
I'd like to make 2 points of clarification.
Sure.
So the city code that we've been referring to says that the mayor is always an ex officio member and cannot be a member of the committee. So there was no favor done because we were upset. The code that we've been referenced
you
to
were
change
upset. Okay.
says that you cannot be a committee member. So all we did was execute the city code that was already written, just like it said you can only serve for 1 year, not 4. So all we did was realign that particular portion of the resolution. There was no favor because we were upset. Actually, the code written says you couldn't serve on the committee. I'd also like to make the point, clarify.
Hold on before you go to the next one. Before you go to the next one.
No, you asked me to give you yours, you're going to give me mine.
Before you go to the next
asked
one, I'm
me to
just
give
giving you
you
clarity. Can I ask for clarity?
No.
Oh, I can't ask for clarity.
No.
Then go to your next one because your first one was wrong anyway.
Okay. Now, moving on. The other point I wanted to clarify, and first of all, we have not yelled at all the entire meeting.
I'm not yelling now.
You showed up.
I'm not yelling now.
Not at all. Not a single thing. Even though we may disagreed, it was calm, cool, and couth.
It's a lie as you sit.
No way. Now, you should use your gavel to get the. You should use your gavel.
No, you don't tell me how to chair the meeting. Go to your next point.
Because
Go to
any
your
other
next
time
point.
when they're arguing with you, you do that. Now when they're arguing with us, no respect.
No, with you, not them. You.
The second point I was trying to make. The second point. Portable. Can we get some order? Selective order. This is amazing. Anyway, the second point.
Let's have order.
The second point I wanted to make was the recommendations from the SPLOST committee were on the same agenda as the first proposed amendment to the resolution. So it's impossible in a timeline and a date frame of mind. It would have been impossible for us to rewrite the resolution because of the recommendations when they were presented together. There's no way. You'd have to have heard the recommendations first and then rewrote the resolution based on the recommendations. They were on the agenda at the same time, which means something was already in the works before the recommendations were presented. So please stop with the accusation that the committee, that the council has looked at revising the resolution because of the recommendations. They were given at the exact same meeting. You had to have one before the other to use one as a cause. I just want to make that clear. But I'd also like to say that I am absolutely done with this conversation because what I don't want is for the citizens to leave with the impression that it's okay to disrespect anybody. And if I continue to show that behavior, I believe that will continue to happen to us. So I'm going to take the high road. And I'm going to...
That sailed. Okay.
So selective.
So here we go.
We really do need a parliamentarian.
Okay. So I'm going to call for order. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Would you?
Any other time?
Okay. Yeah. All right. So, anybody else for discussion? Ms. O'Donnell.
Thank you,
Councilwoman O'Donnell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and
Yes,
welcome
ma'am.
back to the council.
Oh, I appreciate it.
My question is specifically for Attorney Curry. Attorney Curry, I'd like to get a legal opinion on the creation of committees where priority preference is given to the members of the committee. And if you can provide that in writing to the entire council, I would appreciate it.
What do you mean by priority preference?
Priority preference. Priority preference was given to Stonecrest residents with experience in the following areas: legal services, contracting, RFP, evaluations, purchasing, road construction, engineering, information technology. I've had a housewife contact me and ask me why she would not have been given the opportunity based on these priority preferences given in some areas. And let me just, if I can finish, please. Let me read what's in the press article that's published for several thousand people have already read. The Splash Oversight Committee will be comprised of 12 members. Recommendations for appointees will come from each council member and the mayor. The mayor said that priority preference will be given to Stonecrest residents with experience in the following areas, and I quote, legal services, contracting, purchasing, road construction, engineering, information technology, construction management. So what I want from you, if you may, Attorney Curry, is a written legal opinion with case law on the creation of committees where priority and preferential treatment is given to the members of the committee.
Okay, so, so just so I don't have any misunderstanding, what you're asking me to do is to write a legal opinion with respect to whether or not there should be a preference for citizens of Stonecrest to be?
Not whether or not. I want to know, what does the law say about creating committees with a priority preference for experience in those areas, with case law attached to it?
Creating committees. Setting qualifications. Okay. Okay. I'm going to probably have to talk with you as I put this together as to how I'm going to approach it.
Well, let me just add something to help you do your research. I did do a little bit, I'm not a lawyer, so let me preface my comment with my lack of legal experience. But I did talk to other lawyers as well as GMA, and I am being told to get clarification on the creation of the priority treatment, because let me just explain a little bit. Everybody in this city is a taxpayer, the stakeholders and the citizens. And so when we create committees, everyone, regardless of their level of experience, should have the same equal, fair opportunity to be able to serve on committees. And so that's why I'm asking you for a legal opinion with case law on giving preferential treatment to individuals with certain levels of knowledge and experience, which precludes and excludes a lot of the population in the city of Stonecrest.
Okay, I think I got you.
Okay, allow me. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let me just say that the establishment of a SPLOST committee is essential for us to oversee the expenditures of SPLOST funds. And it's just for that, to oversee the expenditures of SPLOST funds and make recommendations. And right now, we've spent 0 SPLOST dollars. And I think the timing to make sure we get this committee right is now, because the rule of committee is that they are reconstituted at the beginning of the year. And we're coming to that point, whereas this will be the opportune time to fix anything that we see needs fixing with the committee, or leave it as is if we find that it is what we are all looking for. And I think that is part of the issue. Is it what we were all expecting out of this committee, or is it given a different appearance? And
Order, please. Order. Continue, Councilman.
And when you take votes, you can rescind the vote, or however you want to correct whatever you've done. And that's been said about even the issue with the negotiation for a SPLOST manager. You're saying those same things. So the same thing applies here. And that is that I think now's the time to take a close look at it, and we're not attempting to change or dissolve anything tonight. We wanted to bring it up for more discussion and clarity for the benefit of the council and the community at large. So work with us. That's what I'm asking you to make sure we get the best committee that we can get to oversee the use of SPLOST.
All right, we're gonna stop here. Thank you, council. Thank you for the discussion. What's up?
What's number 11?
The Development Authority.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to ask if we could defer this item. We're still working with the Development Authority on the structure of the committee, and let's defer this until such time that we have some of the details worked out.
All right, do we require a vote for the deferral? All right.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we defer the item based on the city manager's recommendation.
Okay, properly moved. Do I have a second?
I second it.
All right, properly moved and second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Item so deferred. Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Okay, down to your comments, sir.
Yeah, just real quick, I mentioned this briefly during the work session. provided all the council members with a copy of a letter addressed to Mr. Patrick Bradshaw with the Atlanta Regional Commission. And this, as you see in the bottom, it's a signature block for both myself and Mr. Ted Reinhardt with the county. This is in regards to the Panola Road project. The county is pursuing additional funding for this project, and in order to do that, they require a joint letter speaking to the commitment from both the county and the city regarding our commitment to fund the project. The council has previously initiated or previously noted that we'd be willing to fund up to an amount of $2 million toward that project at this time. It doesn't get into that, but it simply just spells out the fact that we do have a agreement in place that's being worked on. This will allow them to move forward with soliciting additional funding specifically for that Panola Road project. I just want to make the council aware. We wanted to make sure everybody was okay with moving forward with sending this letter, signing it, and moving it forward in conjunction with the county so they can submit it over to the ARC.
Excellent. Okay, okay.
And I'm sorry, just one last thing. It was mentioned earlier in regards to the Planning Commission and the Board of Zoning Appeals. For those appointments, there are also some appointments with our internal auditor, our consultant for Development Authority. Those are also appointments that would need to be redone prior to the end or at the first meeting of the year. So just want to make that aware for everybody that at some point, the first part of the year, we will need to go back and reappoint or make some decisions in regards to those positions. And that's all.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Mr. City Attorney. You got anything,
I'm
sir?
afraid to say anything.
It's all good, brother.
No comments.
Councilwoman Cobble. All right, my good brother.
Happy Thanksgiving. Be safe.
Councilman Glenn. Couple of things. We're still having our community meeting. We're having a big meeting on the 15th of December. Everybody's invited out. We have a guest list, and I'll publish that pretty soon. This one will occur at the Stonecrest Library, on Klondike Road. Also, I would like to say that when all is said and done, in the spring of the year, whenever it is that we can move pavement, I would like for us as a city to be moving dirt and paving our roads. That's what I would like to see happen. Councilman.
Pass.
All right. Councilwoman Nadoma.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to let everyone know that last year, as you know, we did feed our police officers at the East Precinct. We fed them a Christmas dinner. And so this year, we will have our second annual Christmas luncheon to feed our men in blue. We hope that you'll either donate or attend, or you can bring a turkey or whatever you want to bring. Also, on December 18th, I'll be at the Stonecrest Library, and we will be collecting toys and clothing for any child in Stonecrest, any underprivileged child who is in need of clothing or toys or anything else, and we'll be delivering those items on Christmas Eve day. So I'll be going from door to door delivering toys.
All right. Madam Clerk, happy birthday. Ripe age of 39. It's good seeing you all. I thank you for your calls, your cards, your emails, your texts, your phones. I'm doing as best I can. I try to make it as often as I can, and always remember we're here to put things in perspective so we can make our city grow, do the right thing, no matter how spirited it is. It's all of our intention to do the right thing with regards to where we are with the city of Stonecrest, and to make sure that things happen the way that citizens benefit. Citizens benefit. So with that, Mr. City Attorney, do I make a motion to go into executive session
For real estate.
for real estate? I move that we go into executive session for real estate.
Second it.
Properly second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? There we have it.